Welcome to the City of Greater Sudbury Better Budget Presentation. Tom Price is with us. Tom, you're from Our Towns, Our City Institute. What is the Institute?
Oh, the Institute is an advocacy group in a way, but more importantly, we're an information group to share with the voting public in the city and general population what actually happens in spite of what they may be hearing from our council and from the news media in town.
Now, I'm John Lindsay from Friendly to Senior Sudbury, and we're affiliated with CARP, that's the Canadian Association of Retired Persons. And we don't pretend to speak for all seniors, of course, but a significant number. And we have more seniors in Sudbury than practically percentage-wise in any other community in Ontario, well, maybe Canada, except for Elliott Lake, of course, which is a seniors community. But we have a lot of seniors and a lot of seniors that are concerned. So as you mentioned, Tom, we're advocacy, you know, we're not intending to disrupt things except in a positive way. And that is really the purpose for this particular presentation, because we're looking at a better budget or an alternate budget. Tom, can you possibly explain, give us some more clarification here?
Yeah, of course. Right now, the city council and city staff are in the process of reviewing what they call a budget. It's what they call a budget. It's not really a budget. Basically, what they do is they take last year's so-called budget, decide what percentage they can impose, and then they make up numbers to get to that percentage. Basically, the money goes into pools, not into a control budget where they can control costs specifically. And a good example of that is a recent playground revitalization project where they did the revitalization on a little bit less than 50% of the project and ran out of money. Good budget control would have finished the project within budget. So now, once they get the pools of money established, what they do is make up a list of basically distractions to allow council to debate over these distractions and make it appear that they're trying to reduce the budget. And a good example of that was last night's meeting where they argued for some time over, excuse me, getting rid of 3 helipads in the city, which are there for medical and emergencies, catastrophic responses, to save $76,000.
So this is basically almost what a lot of people consider to be, chicken feed sort of thing. And
well, it's less than 1/100th of 1% of the budget.
I think a lot of us get this idea it's sort of like Groundhog Day movie where, every year it's the same thing over and over again.
Yes, it is. And we watch our council sit there and debate things of meaningless consequence in the overall cost. And when they're done, they feel very proud of themselves. Well, they shouldn't. They should feel ashamed of themselves for having been duped into discussing nothing of consequence and letting the things of consequence pass by.
Now, speaking of things of consequence, in your opinion here, that we can make, as we see on the screen here, some better use of available resources and addressing some real needs. And the third point here, using borrowed money for maximum benefit. What are you getting at there?
Well, the last year, in March, I guess, February, the city entered into or purchased what's called a bullet debenture for $205 million. Of that $205 million, $158 million was for arts and entertainment and sports. At the same time, we have many of our infrastructure assets that are just falling apart. We know how much it costs to fix them. There is money in that $158 million to take care of all of that and more.
Mm-hmm. And this would, by doing this type of work, you're saying that you could generate jobs. Yes. And we're talking about the post-pandemic, but some of these jobs you feel could be really established right away.
We could be working on them right now. For example, we have, I think it's 21 fire stations that are in desperate need of building maintenance and upgrades. We could have a crew working in each one of those and still comply with pandemic isolation.
Because they're separate.
Yes.
Yeah, they're
As
isolated.
well, we could use our local resources to do it. So we could create income for currently many unemployed people during the pandemic.
Interesting idea. And also the possibility of limiting our tax increases if we wanted to, like some other municipalities have actually done.
Yes.
So
Whoops,
this is, so
ahead.
you figured out that this particular figure you came up with is $158 million. Now, you said that they borrowed $205 million. Now, this is
Yes.
less than the 205.
Yes. The 158 million is the 90 million that they borrowed for the KED. And the other 68 million is money that they borrowed for the junction. And it's general knowledge throughout the city that you cannot do either of those projects for the money they borrowed. So rather than spending money to incur more money or to incur more debt, we can use that money instead to get ourselves and reduce some of our debt.
These community arenas you're talking about here in this next bullet point here, this is these are just not the downtown arena. These are some of the arenas in the outlying, so-called outlying areas in the valley area.
Yes, these are, well, the valley area, the Walden, Coniston, all over the city. All of our community arenas need maintenance and upgrades. The city has identified what those upgrades are worth, what the capital is needed for them, and all of them can be upgraded for less, about 30 million, maybe a bit more because that number is outdated by about a year and a half. Okay. Fire halls, the same thing. We have 19 fire halls that could be upgraded within $30 million expense. We know they have defined what those costs are. Instead, they're talking about and they're proceeding on going ahead with a $90 to $100 million fire optimization plan that the people said they did not want and does not suit their needs in 2017. So let's take that 158 million, put some crews in each one of those. We have something like, well, let's see, there's 19 plus, so there's about close to 40 different projects that could be worked on simultaneously.
Wow. So that would create quite a bit of employment. Now, this CIP project, what is a CIP project anyway?
Those are community improvement projects. They've done the first phase of the one in Capriol and they ran out of money. They've done part of the one in Chelmsford and ran out of money. It would take roughly $10 million to finish those two projects. And even if it's 15 million, that 158 million has lots of money in it that we can finish those projects.
Now, these are all what you might call benefiting the city in a, I guess the term is livable. It makes the city more livable, including playgrounds as well too. Now, you have here, you would complete the revitalization playground initiative. That would cost about 2 million. So that is sort of halfway through. Is that right?
It's halfway through as far as completion is concerned, but they ran out of money. So to take the $2 million and finish off those playground revitalizations is a big benefit to the communities, especially the communities where they haven't been completed. And a good example in the summertime or the warmer months, and even in the wintertime, even now, when you go by the playground in Lively that has had the revitalization, there are always children there playing. That is really healthy in the times of the pandemic. Okay, so for $2 million, yes, let's do it. Let's stop the KED, let's stop the junction, let's put the money to where it's going to benefit the whole community.
Well, talking about healthy, there's nothing more important than water. and
Yes,
of course wastewater as well too, because you bring the water in, it's got to go someplace, and it goes to the wastewater treatment plants. Now you're saying that if you could use some of this money, this would help to reduce the yearly. I think they've already approved 4.8%, the user fee or the tax, some people call it. So this would help to reduce that somehow.
yes. Any money that you spend on capital impacts on the user fee. Okay. You're going to pay for it out of your user fee. So if you take this capital that's already borrowed, that we're already spending money paying interest on, and apply it to capital requirements in water, wastewater, that capital will get reduced because we already have the money. So you don't have to pay that money back in that manner anymore. We can put it to a general revenue type thing if you like, but either way, it's going to reduce having to borrow that money down the road. So in the overall, even though it's maybe going into the user fee, we all pay the user fee, all of us. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter where you live in the city. Now, finance would have you believe that we don't, that only the people on the water system pay it. Well, I'm sorry, when the grocery store has to pay their extra percentage, when I go to the grocery store, even though I'm not on the system, I'm paying for their water increase. And we all are.
Mhm.
Those who are on the water system are paying twice. Okay. So we're all paying. So let's all pay. Let's get it done. Let's make sure our water supply is reliable
Mhm.
and it's good.
Now that's the 158 million, but as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm talking about us citizens, the city has
Mhm.
borrowed some $205 million. So there's some left over there. Any suggestions
There's
for that amount?
86 million left over. Now we can use part of that for capital projects in water, wastewater. And if we find there's more urgent things elsewhere, we can use part of it on those. But we can put people to work now
Mhm.
doing those projects.
So
Okay.
this is really when you're talking about other savings. I believe you had a comment the other day with respect to the Economic Development Department. And
Yes.
what is your feeling in that area?
Well, I've dealt with economic projects my entire career. Okay. And any economic development only comes as a result of increasing your workforce. If you don't increase your workforce, it's simply economic circulation. It's money going in circles, but you're really not developing any new revenue. When your workforce increases, and before we started this, we made the change from job creation to workforce improvement. Job creation has been increasing because we have more jobs, but we have more people working at 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living.
Mhm.
That doesn't improve the workforce, and it does not increase the revenue for the city. For economic development, you need a greater workforce paying those taxes. So if the economic development department that we've got is spending $7 million a year and not producing any increase in workforce over the last 7 years, why don't we cut it and spend the money where it can be of benefit?
Well, that's a fair amount of money, $7 million a year.
It's 50 million over the last 7 years. That would have gone a long ways towards creating a more workforce.
Now we're talking about, and sort of been my hobby horse for a while, because representing a lot of individuals who feel that we should really keep our downtown library and our downtown, which is virtually downtown, art gallery. And also, there seems to be a lot of concern with respect to the KED and perhaps maybe revitalizing our downtown arena and saving millions. We're talking about millions of dollars. And now there is the possibility that if you go ahead and build new structures, and I know you've done a lot of work in this area, the city has committed themselves to zero emissions by a certain period of time, and the city has gone on record as being committed to climate change. So if you build these buildings, and I understand with respect to renovating or building new, there's a big difference in CO2 emissions.
Oh, yes. A typical thing like renovating the downtown arena versus a brand new arena, you can cut your CO2 emissions during construction roughly in half, maybe even by 2/3. So for the environmentalists and for the people who believe that we do have a problem with our environment, I'm surprised that they're not out there marching on the streets saying, hey, let's renovate. There's plenty of studies to indicate it. There's proof of it. Why are we not pursuing it? We have an arena, a good arena. We have a good library. We have a good art gallery. Renovate them, make them nice. It doesn't take much. And you can see there the art gallery at the top, interior. There's nothing wrong with that art gallery that can't be fixed up. I would suspect maybe $5 million on it and the libraries each would fix them up to the point where you got nothing to worry about. So why would we build new for closer to downtown? It makes absolutely zero sense. Let's spend the money where it's needed, not where somebody wants it.
Well, when you talk about somebody, there's been some concern that maybe we're listening to the wrong people when it comes to some of these big projects, as they're called.
Yes.
And we have more information on our website, that's friendlytoseniors.ca. You can look at some of the information we have there. And of course, Tom, you've been working on many of these issues over the years, and just going back to this one now, and emphasizing that we can accomplish quite a bit of what you might call positive action with respect to
Yes.
job creation, of reducing our CO2 emissions, and actually saving millions of dollars while keeping a lot of our history. Because, and we've just heard that in some of the budget deliberations, wanting to get rid of even the suggestion that maybe we should get rid of our museums.
Yes.
I mean, the actual savings would be probably fairly small, but you're losing part of your history, and it seems to run counter to creating a really good and livable community.
Well, the museum one is particularly offensive to me in that Sudbury has one of the richest mining histories and metallurgical histories of any country or any place in the world. Okay. We have no museum to celebrate that.
And it's been suggested that possibly in the Bell Rock Mansion, maybe one of the floors could be used for, at
Absolutely.
least some. And this mansion itself is really an historic site. It's all recognized as a historic site,
Yeah.
and it could be a real tourist attraction if there was just more than art to be shown. If people had a chance to realize the history, the Bell family history, for that matter, and they contribute, of course, to Bell Park, our our most used and most loved park. So there is that possibility.
Well, not only that, John, we talk about tourism all the time. In fact, I think the economic group is devoting something like $1 million to encourage tourism here. Well, studies in England and other countries have indicated that a museum is a better tourist attraction than an art gallery. And that's no slighting of the artists. It's just that people who do travel and who are tourists, there's more of them interested in museums and local history than there is in art. So why are we getting rid of the biggest tourist attraction in town and building a new one where no one will go to it?
We
And
have parking on site for the both the museum and the library as well, to the art gallery, and which could be also a museum, and also
for,
the parking, which is located right next to the Red Oak Villa, the high school, the public school, the Indie Cinema.
well, there's also the Christ the King Senior Center there as well. Schools are there. Why would we want to move it?
So going back to sort of recapping here in a few minutes we have left here, we're talking about, and just going back to what we've already talked about, making our fire stations more sustainable. There's been talk about perhaps reorganizing our fire service to use more volunteers,
Right.
and fixing up our community arenas right where they exist. And one of the things that I find it difficult to understand is when you have an arena in a community, why do you want to centralize it someplace else where people have a greater distance to go?
Well, this is particularly important in times of disaster
Mm.
because arenas and community halls become central gathering points and central shelters for those whose homes get destroyed. And so they're needed local to the community, not some 20 miles away. So
So these are all possible. We've looked at these. We've been talking about sort of a better budget, and this is really almost what you might call a quantum shift in looking at things. But
absolutely.
it's come about because the fact that actually now a lot of us were concerned about the amount of money that's been borrowed and the interest, but this is what you're saying. It's putting it to better use.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if we could even reduce the tax for this year, that would be appreciated by many individuals. We know that Barrie reduced their tax rate to less than 1%. Thunder Bay at only 1.6%.
Well, we're desperately trying to find savings of $14 million. Well, we've got the money borrowed. Use it and pay down some of that 14 million.
Well, it's
So there's no tax increase.
no. So there we are. Now, I don't know. Some people are going to say this is a little simplistic, but maybe that's really what we need is going back to some basics.
Absolutely.
Any final comments, Mr. Price, before we close off our half-hour presentation?
Well, going back to basics is a key parameter of good engineering. It's good engineering, if you're faced with a problem, the first thing to have a successful solution is to go back to the basics and what is varied from the basics so you can address it. And that's what we're not doing in our city right now. The basics, for example, in fire, the basics are the fire station should be local to the need. So they can get there quickly. It instills community pride, community identity. We forget all that. When you start to build an empire, guess what? The outlying countries of your empire suffer and go bankrupt and fall off the edge of the empire anyway. So if you're creating an empire in a city, the outer regions are going to fall off. So don't do that. Build a city that is comprehensive to everyone in it.
So
Sorry.
I think that we've just about reached the end of our time here. And Tom, I want to thank you for enlightening us and giving us an alternate, because it seems like what we've been doing in the past has not achieved the desired results. We
No.
keep adding tax increases upon tax increases, which, even for 1 year, okay, we can do it for 1 year, but this is cumulative. Is that correct? You keep adding on.
Well, it's not only cumulative, it's compounded.
Right.
When you add 3% each year, that's to the 3% of the year before. So it compounds. It doesn't just add on, it compounds. And anybody who's had an investment where they gain compound interest knows how fast that can accumulate. Mary Poppins, a tuppence a day, it soon
Right.
grows to be a sizable sum.
True.
So,
Well, here we are, and we're back more or less full screen, so you can see us here.
yeah.
And I just want to say that, Tom, I want to thank you very much for this insight. And for anyone, as we mentioned our last slide there, anyone can contact us friendlytoseniors.ca, or even send us an email at friendlytoseniors.sudbury@gmail. And we really like to hear from you. And of course, if you're really concerned, contact your counselor, contact the mayor, because we're all part of this. We're all citizens, Tom. And
Well,
we
not
all
only
have,
that,
and we really do have a responsibility as well as citizens to make our views known.
yes, we're responsible for giving the city direction of where it should go. And more than that, we're the ones who provide the resources to provide it.
Our dollars, in other words.
Our dollars. The city doesn't provide anything. We do through our taxes. Those are all our dollars. Even the 205 million that was borrowed, that is our money. It doesn't belong to some inanimate corporation. It's ours.
And so it's a question of how best to use it and for the
Absolutely.
greatest returns.
Yep.
So just summarizing what you've said today is we can use this money in a better way. We can create jobs. We can even possibly reduce taxes.
Yep.
What's not to
Definitely.
like?
Yeah. And even the people doing the work, their taxes come back to the city.
That's true.
So like it's just win, 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 win if we redirect the funds to where they should go. It's not a win-win. It's a win, 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 win.
I like the three wins. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for the opportunity.
Until next time, goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.